So after all the speculation and rumours, Amazon have finally decided on who will be directing the next James Bond film. It's none other than legendary filmmaker Denis Villeneuve, who I did mention as one of the leading candidates in my recent video. Sure, in that video I focused on my theory of Christopher Nolan being my pick, which did turn out to be wrong, but there was no denying that Villeneuve, Edgar Wright and others were the main rumoured picks that Amazon were looking at. And now it's official that Villeneuve will be directing it and putting his creative stamp on a Bond movie. So in this video, I'm going to be discussing the big news, what Villeneuve and the studio said about the confirmation, and what this could mean for the production on Dune Messiah. Before I get into it though, if you want to see more content on the director, his Dune films, and the next James Bond movie, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating and subscribing to the channel. But without further ado, let's dive into the confirmation of Denis Villeneuve directing the next James Bond movie. So Denis Villeneuve has been confirmed to direct the upcoming James Bond film for Amazon MGM Studios, as announced by the studio last night. Amy Pascal and David Heyman will serve as producers, with Villeneuve's wife Tanya Lapointe taking on the role of executive producer. Villeneuve has been speculated to be among the prominent directors considered for the project, alongside notable names such as Edward Berger, Edgar Wright, Jonathan Nolan, and Paul King. Initially, there was a brief rumour that Alfonso Cuarón, a regular collaborator with Heyman, could be the one to take the role of director, but he ultimately passed on the project. In the Deadline article that confirms that Denis will be directing the new Bond movie, he made a comment about the announcement, saying, "Some of my earliest movie-going memories are connected to 007. I grew up watching James Bond films with my father ever since Dr. No with Sean Connery. I'm a die-hard Bond fan. To me, he's sacred territory, and I intend to honour the tradition and open the path for many new missions to come. This is a massive responsibility, but also incredibly exciting for me and a huge honour. Amy Pascal, David Heyman and I are absolutely thrilled to bring him back to the screen. Thank you to Amazon MGM Studios for their trust." Furthermore, the head of Amazon MGM Studios, Mike Hopkins, also left his comments on the announcement, saying, "We are honoured that Denis has agreed to direct James Bond's next chapter. He is a cinematic master whose filmography speaks for itself. From Blade Runner 2049 to Arrival to the Dune films, he has delivered compelling worlds, dynamic visuals, complex characters, and most importantly, the immersive storytelling that global audiences yearn to experience in theatres. James Bond is in the hands of one of today's greatest filmmakers, and we cannot wait to get started on 007's next adventure." Producers Amy Pascal and David Heyman added, "Denis Villeneuve has been in love with James Bond movies since he was a little boy. It was always his dream to make this movie, and now it's ours too. We are lucky to be in the hands of this extraordinary filmmaker." Now, the director of the next Bond became the centre of attention ever since Amazon MGM took full creative control of the franchise in February through a landmark agreement with longtime producers Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson. The studio secured distribution rights to Bond when it acquired MGM Studios for $8.5 billion. Yet it struggled to launch a new film, likely due to creative disagreements with the franchise's former producers. Since Daniel Craig concluded his tenure with the franchise with No Time to Die in 2021, there has not been a new Bond film nor an announcement since. So what do I think of the crazy news that Denis Villeneuve is going to be directing the next James Bond film? Well, I'll be honest, the decision to go with Villeneuve is quite a surprise to me, and while he was on that rumoured shortlist I talked about the other day, I never thought they would actually go with him. And the reason I say that is because he's already got a lot of projects planned for the foreseeable future, including his third and final Dune film for Warner Bros., Dune Messiah, which is set to begin shooting this summer and is scheduled for release on December the 16th, 2026. He has been involved with that franchise for years, having released the initial film in 2021, and then alongside Dune, he is also associated with several other projects currently in development. This includes a Cleopatra film, an adaptation of Arthur C. Clarke's renowned sci-fi novel Rendezvous with Rama, and Nuclear War: A Scenario, which is based on the non-fiction book by Annie Jacobsen. So with all those projects on the way, how could anyone think he would be able to do it? At the same time, what I will say is that it has to be noted that he is one of the best choices available, having shown through his work on larger films that he is the type of visionary who should be taking on a Bond movie, especially during a period when the franchise's future is in doubt. He's a director with a grand creative sensibility and someone who understands how to approach a franchise film. His adaptations of Frank Herbert's work achieved critical acclaim and commercial success, earning him multiple Oscars and grossing over $1 billion globally. And even before Dune, he directed a sequel to Ridley Scott's iconic sci-fi film Blade Runner, with Blade Runner 2049 receiving a lot of critical acclaim for that too. If you are Amazon and worried about the choices you make going forward, then I think you go with someone like Denis, as he has proven himself time and time again. And while my main pick for Bond was director Christopher Nolan, Denis Villeneuve was definitely close behind him, and now that it's actually been announced that he is doing it, it honestly feels like a dream. I would never have expected a filmmaking auteur like a Denis Villeneuve to be picked for a Bond film, especially a few years ago while the Broccolis were still in charge. So overall, appointing Villeneuve as the director of the next Bond movie is for me a significant progression for the franchise during its new Amazon era. Despite ongoing skepticism about Amazon's approach to Bond, there is now a heightened level of confidence with Villeneuve being attached to the project. He has a reputation for revitalizing beloved intellectual properties in ways that feel both innovative and respectful of their legacy. With a director confirmed, the next focus will be on casting the new 007, and I cannot wait to find out who it is. Will it be a Villeneuve regular or an actor he hasn't worked with before? I will be discussing this topic in a separate video and listing my choices for who might play the role. But coming back to the news on Villeneuve, collaborating with a renowned director like him is a wise decision. As a huge admirer of his films, I find myself much more intrigued by the future of the franchise than I was previously, especially after not being the biggest fan of 2021's No Time to Die. I'm hoping for a film that leaves a significant mark on the franchise, akin to say Casino Royale, but with Villeneuve's unique style. And as I mentioned in my recent Bond video, I have no doubt that a filmmaker like Denis will honour Bond's legacy and everything that entails, even while incorporating his own distinctive filmmaking touches. The last thing that I wanted to talk about was what this could mean for Denis' scheduled Dune Messiah film, as some people have been asking me whether I think that Bond or Messiah will come first and when we might get each of the films. Well, to make it clear, Denis Villeneuve directing James Bond has only just been announced, and while his Bond actor and other things to do with the film have most likely been decided on, Dune Messiah is his next scheduled film. So for all those concerns about Messiah, don't worry, because that has already been confirmed. It was rumoured last week that Villeneuve will actually be shooting Messiah this summer, and the film is due to be released in December of 2026. So Denis will be focusing on that project first, and then afterwards he will be centering his attention to James Bond. I think we're likely to get his Bond film somewhere around 2027 or 2028, with 2028 being the likely timeframe, as Denis will have to work on pre-production and making sure his script is exactly what he wants. I think the more intriguing question about this announcement is whether projects like Rendezvous with Rama, Cleopatra, and his nuclear war film will ever see the light of day. And the reason I say this is because working on Bond doesn't just take up 2 years of your life, especially if your first film is outstanding. Denis already said in the new Deadline article that he intends to honour the tradition of Bond and open the path for many new missions to come. So he's basically saying that he wouldn't mind making more than one Bond film. And with that in mind, I think it does put doubt on some of those other projects. I have to be honest about this, I do think he announced way too many projects ahead of time, and now living up to all of those plans is likely going to take longer than a decade. I can understand a Dune Messiah and James Bond being announced, but maybe he should have kept the other projects to the side until a bit later on. Still, I'm sure Denis would want to approach those projects at a later time, and hopefully they will eventually see the light of day. But that was my video discussing the confirmation of director Denis Villeneuve making the next James Bond movie. As a whole, I'm interested to see what direction Villeneuve and Amazon will go in with this, and the next announcement will probably be the casting of Bond himself, alongside writers and Denis' creative team. Hopefully, Denis is really allowed to make it his own film aesthetically, while retaining the traditional aspects that people want from a Bond film. But let me know down below in the comment section what you think towards the confirmation that Denis Villeneuve is making the next James Bond movie, and who you would like to see be cast as Bond in his film. For much more content on Denis Villeneuve and his future projects, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.